6,000 years ago, long before the pyramids, before written history itself, something was built on a lonely hilltop, a massive stone structure, oval in shape, with walls that rise like a fortress, and doorways that lead to nowhere. Who built it? Why does it exist? And how did they create something that should have been impossible? What lies beneath these stones may change everything we know about history forever. Welcome to Historia Unseen. I'm John, the voice behind these hidden stories. And today, I'll take you inside one of the most shocking discoveries ever unearthed. An ancient secret, older than the pyramids, older than every empire you have ever heard of. A massive stone structure, hidden on a misty hilltop, that should not exist at all. Tonight, you will see how it was discovered, what it looked like thousands of years ago, and the shocking mystery of the people who built it. A 6,000-year-old megastructure, standing alone, without answers, without history, and without logic. This is not just a ruin. This may be the first sign of a forgotten nation, a nation that history never recorded. What you are about to witness will challenge everything you thought you knew about the past. Pause. Welcome to Historia Unseen. I'm John, the voice behind these hidden stories. And this is part 1. The birth of a nation. The story begins slowly, with the ruins. The stone structure sits high on the green hills, covered in mist. The walls, built of massive rocks, form an oval shape. Inside, the floor is barren, only scattered with broken stones. The place looks quiet, empty, abandoned, but every block whispers of an untold story. For centuries, no one knew it was here. Locals walked the hills, herded animals, lived their simple lives, never realizing that under their very feet, history was hiding. Then, decades ago, a group of explorers found the walls covered in grass and moss. At first, they thought it was nothing more than an old fort, maybe built in the Middle Ages. But when scientists came, they were shocked. The stones were far older, thousands of years older. The tests revealed something impossible. The structure was at least 6,000 years old, built long before any known kingdom in that land, long before cities rose, long before history even began to be written down. Yet here it was, standing against time. People asked, who built it? How could they have done it? And why? Some believed it was made by shepherds or farmers who lived in the hills. But the walls were too perfect, too strong. Others thought it might have been a meeting place, or a sacred temple. But there was no proof. No carvings, no writings, no symbols. Nothing. Only the stones. It was as if the builders wanted to leave behind no name, no sign. Only the structure itself. Archaeologists began to call it the first nation that never had a name. They believed it might have been the center of a lost community, a gathering ground where leaders met, where rituals were performed, or where warriors trained. The oval shape, almost like an arena, gave them that idea. But if this was the beginning of a nation, why did it disappear? Theories grew. Some said disease destroyed the people. Some said they left for unknown lands. Some even whispered about floods and storms that wiped them away. But the truth was missing. Every answer opened a new question. And yet, there was one thing everyone agreed on. Whoever built this structure was far ahead of their time. The stones were cut with unusual precision. They were carried from far away, though no one knows how. Some rocks weighed tons. To move them without wheels, without iron, without machines, seemed almost impossible. Still, the builders did it. They raised the walls high, curved them smoothly, and created an architectural wonder. The nation that was born here may have been small. It may have lasted only a few generations. But the ruins show their courage, their intelligence, and their ambition. Imagine them. 6,000 years ago, men and women working together, shaping the land, raising the walls, creating something they believed would last forever. They could not know that one day their work would vanish under earth and grass, that their names would be forgotten, that their voices would be silenced. But the stones remember. When the wind blows across the empty oval, it feels like the whispers of those people still echo, as if the walls themselves are telling us, we were here, we lived, we built, we mattered. This is the beginning of their story, a nation that had no flag, no name, no history, yet it left behind something that refuses to be erased. And this is only the first part of the mystery, because what comes next is far darker and far stranger. The mist was heavy that morning. The hills were quiet, silent, as if the earth itself was hiding something. It was here that a group of local farmers, searching for lost animals, noticed something unusual: a curve of stone sticking out of the grass. At first, they thought it was part of an old wall, maybe from a forgotten farmhouse. But when they followed the line of stones, their eyes widened. The wall curved and curved until it formed an enormous oval shape. No farm could have built this. No ordinary family could have raised such massive stone walls. News traveled quickly. Soon, explorers and historians arrived. They brushed away the moss, cleared the grass, and revealed the hidden ruin. And the more they uncovered, the stranger it became. Inside the oval, there was no roof, only open sky. The ground was bare earth, covered with broken rocks. Around the inside walls, they found arched doorways, dark, silent openings leading into chambers carved into the wall. The explorers stepped inside. The air was cold. The chambers were empty. No tools, no carvings, no bones, only silence. It was as if the people who once lived here had vanished without a trace. The scientists were confused. This place looked too organized to be random. The shape was too perfect, the walls too strong. One historian whispered, "It looks like an arena." The idea spread quickly. The oval was large enough to hold hundreds of people. The walls could contain sound or protect those inside. The chambers might have been used by priests or by leaders who watched the events in the center. But events of what? Celebrations? Rituals? Sacrifices? No one knew. The archaeologists sent samples of the stone for testing, and when the results returned, the world of history shook. The structure was not medieval, not Roman, not even Bronze Age. It was far, far older. More than 6,000 years old. Older than the first cities of Mesopotamia. Older than the pyramids of Egypt. Older than every written record we have. The experts were stunned. How could people in such an ancient time build something so advanced? How could they move stones so heavy, without the wheel, without iron tools, without any of the technology we believe existed later? And then came the most chilling question of all. If this was built 6,000 years ago, then who were the builders? There was no record of a nation here at that time. No evidence of kings, no villages, no known tribes large enough to build on such a scale. According to history books, the land should have been empty. And yet it wasn't empty. It held a secret nation, one that somehow left no trace but stone. As the news spread, theories began to form. Some believed it was a ceremonial site where people gathered to worship the gods. Others thought it was a training ground where warriors fought in the center while leaders watched. Some whispered darker things, that it was a place of sacrifice where blood was spilled on the dirt floor. But no matter the theory, one truth remained. This was not the work of simple farmers. When the team explored deeper, they found unusual marks on some of the stones. Cuts too sharp, too clean, as if made with tools far more advanced than stone hammers. Some experts even argued that the precision was impossible for the time. Whispers of lost technology began. Could these builders have known something we no longer understand? Or had they been taught? Every answer led only to new questions. The site became a puzzle piece that did not fit into the timeline of history. It was as if someone had taken a secret page out of humanity's story and hidden it away. The discovery stunned the world, but for the explorers who stood inside the oval, surrounded by towering walls, the feeling was far more personal. They said the air felt heavy. They said it was like stepping into another world, a world that was not meant to be found. And when night fell, some swore they heard strange echoes in the chambers, whispers carried by the wind, as if the walls themselves still remembered, and still wanted to speak. The first discovery was not just about stones. It was about something deeper, something alive in the silence. And it was only the beginning, because what they found next would challenge not only history, but reality itself. The explorers thought they had seen everything, but the stones held more secrets than anyone expected. As archaeologists cleared the ruins, they noticed strange details. The walls were not random piles of rock. Each stone was cut and placed with care. Some were shaped into perfect curves. Others were stacked so tightly together that even after 6,000 years, not a single gap remained between them. It was not the work of chance. It was design. And then came the marks. On certain stones, the team discovered grooves, scratches, and deep lines, patterns that could not have been made by simple wooden tools. Some cuts were so smooth, they looked as if they had been sliced with machines. One archaeologist ran his fingers across the grooves and whispered, "This is impossible." Because history tells us that 6,000 years ago, humanity was still learning how to farm, how to shape clay, how to build small huts of wood and mud. They should not have been able to raise walls like these, or carve stone with such precision. And yet they did. The scientists argued. Some said the marks were natural, made by time and weather. Others believed they were deliberate, signs of a technology we no longer understand. But even the skeptics could not explain how the stones were moved. Some of them weighed many tons. To lift them, drag them, and stack them without wheels, without animals strong enough to pull, without metal tools, seemed unthinkable. But the wall stood tall, proof that it had been done. As they dug deeper around the base, the team found more. Hidden doorways, leading into narrow passages cut into the earth. Inside, the air was cold and heavy. The explorers lit their torches, and the shadows of the stones danced across the walls. One chamber held nothing but a flat slab of rock, placed like a table. Another chamber had a sunken pit in the ground, as if something had once been buried there. The pit was empty now, but the silence was overwhelming. The chambers felt alive, as if they remembered the rituals, the voices, the footsteps that had once filled them. The archaeologists began to write their notes. This was not just a structure. One wrote, it was a place of power. But power for what? Some suggested worship. The oval arena could have been a sacred gathering site. People might have filled the center, praying to gods long forgotten. The doorways could have held priests, watching as rituals unfolded below. Others believed it was a gathering place for leaders, a kind of council ground. Here, decisions might have been made, alliances formed, and the first steps toward a nation born. But there were darker theories too. The stone slab could have been an altar. The pit could have been for sacrifices. The oval could have been a stage for blood and fear. No bones were found, no tools, no offerings, no carvings of gods or animals. Nothing, only the stones, as if the builders had wanted their secrets to remain hidden forever. The mystery only deepened when scientists tested the soil. Beneath the structure, they found signs of fire, great fire, burning hot enough to leave traces thousands of years later. What kind of fire could survive here? Was it a simple hearth for warmth? Or was it something more, something ritualistic, something terrifying? And then, one of the explorers noticed something chilling. When you stood in the exact center of the oval and spoke, your voice echoed strangely. It did not spread outward, but upward, rising into the sky. The design of the walls carried sound in a way no one could explain. It was as if the structure had been built for voices, for chants, for calls to something above. The scientists grew uneasy. They had come searching for history, but what they found felt like something else, something that did not belong in the timeline of humanity. The marks on the stones, the impossible cuts, the strange echo, the silence of the chambers. It all pointed to a truth too big to face. Whoever built this place was far ahead of their time. Some whispered it was the first sign of a forgotten technology. Others dared to say it was not human at all. But the stones gave no answers. They stood in silence, ancient, immovable, staring down at the men and women who tried to unlock their story. And in that silence, the ruins seemed to speak without words. They told a story of power, of rituals, of secrets that could not be written down. The explorers left that night with heavy thoughts. The oval remained, quiet under the moonlight, its chambers waiting, its stones whispering. And as dawn broke over the hills, the question remained. What other secrets were still buried, hidden inside the stones, waiting to be found? The ruins had been uncovered, the stones had revealed their strange marks, but still no answers. The scientists stood inside the oval, staring at the walls. They asked the same question again and again. Who built this place? No names. No carvings. No records. Only silence. And so, theories began to grow. Some believed the builders were simple farmers, people who lived in small groups, raising animals and crops on the hills. They might have gathered together, slowly lifting stones, using ropes and wooden logs to drag them. Over years, perhaps decades, they built the oval as a meeting place. It was the simplest explanation, but even as it was spoken, it felt weak. The stones were too heavy. The design was too precise. The farmers of that age were not supposed to know how to build such things. Others believed it was the work of a forgotten civilization, a nation that rose, built its monuments, and vanished long before the first cities of the world were born. A people without writing, without kings, but with knowledge that somehow disappeared with them. This idea filled the archaeologists with awe. If true, it meant history was incomplete, that there had once been a people as skilled as any later empire, but erased by time. Then came the theory of ritual. The oval was too large to be a house. It was too strange to be a fortress. Perhaps, they said, it was a temple, a place of worship for gods long forgotten. The people might have gathered here in the thousands, chanting as their voices rose into the sky, echoing through the walls. The doorways could have been the places where priests stood, the slab a sacred altar, the pit a place for offerings. But what kind of offerings? Food? Animals? Or something darker? The silence of the chambers seemed to encourage darker thoughts. Some experts began to whisper about human sacrifice. They imagined the oval floor stained with blood, the crowd shouting, the fire burning. No proof was found, but the absence of evidence only made the theory stronger. And still another idea emerged. What if this was no temple? What if it was an arena? The shape was perfect for it. The high walls, the open center, the way sound carried upward. Warriors might have fought here, while the crowd watched from the edges. It could have been a place of strength, where only the strongest survived. But again, no weapons were found. No bones. No signs of battles. The mystery grew heavier. Some scientists refused to accept any of these ideas. They argued that the structure was too advanced for its time. The cuts in the stone, the way the blocks fit together, all suggested knowledge, far beyond that of farmers or herders. One archaeologist dared to ask, what if this knowledge did not come from them? The team went silent. He continued, every culture speaks of gods who came from the sky, of visitors who taught them, of gifts of knowledge. What if this was one of those gifts? The others shook their heads. They did not want to believe it, but the thought had already entered their minds, and it refused to leave, because the ruins did not belong in the story of humanity as we know it. They belonged somewhere else, in a story we have forgotten, or a story we were never told. As the days passed, more theories surfaced. Some believed the builders were survivors of a lost world, perhaps destroyed by flood or fire. They compared it to myths of Atlantis, a great land swallowed by the sea. Could this oval have been the work of those survivors, a last attempt to hold on to their knowledge? Others suggested the builders were dreamers, visionaries of their time, who wanted to create something eternal, something that would outlive them, something that would make their name immortal. And though their names were lost, their stones remained. But none of these theories were complete. Everyone left questions unanswered. If they were farmers, how did they cut the stones? If they were priests, why no carvings of gods? If they were warriors, why no weapons? If they were a lost nation, where are the villages, the homes, the graves? The oval stood silent, refusing to answer. Theories kept coming, but none could unlock the truth. The structure mocked them, as if it had been built to keep its secret forever. And perhaps that was the point. Perhaps the builders wanted to vanish. Perhaps they wanted their nation to remain unseen. Perhaps their power was too dangerous to record, too dangerous to pass on. The stones were their message, and their silence was their warning. And still, as the archaeologists stood there, staring at the oval, they could feel it. A presence. As if the builders had never truly left. The ruins had already shocked the world. But what the archaeologists uncovered next made the mystery even deeper. As they studied the stones more closely, new details began to emerge. On several blocks, the surface was too smooth, almost polished. It was not the rough work of stone hammers. It looked as though the builders had used tools far sharper, far stronger tools that, according to history, should not have existed 6,000 years ago. One scientist bent low, running his hand across the stone. The cut was so clean it could have been made by a modern saw. He whispered, "This is impossible." And yet there it was. The deeper they explored, the stranger it became. Underneath some of the walls, they found layers of stone arranged in perfect alignment, each block carefully positioned, as if the builders had known how to design foundations strong enough to survive thousands of years. Modern engineers studied the placement and admitted it was advanced even by today's standards. But how could people with no metal tools, no written language, no wheels, no machines, have done this? The stones gave no answer, only silence. As excavation continued, workers unearthed something else. Buried in the soil near the oval floor, they found fragments of rock that looked scorched, burned by extreme heat. The fire must have been powerful, far hotter than simple wood or grass flames. Some suggested a massive ritual fire, burning for days. Others whispered of something stranger, a technology that no longer exists. The discovery unsettled everyone. If fire strong enough to scar stone had once burned here, then what had it been used for? Worship? Destruction? Or something we cannot even imagine? But the most disturbing evidence came when sound tests were performed inside the oval. One researcher stood in the center and spoke. His words rose into the air, amplified by the curve of the walls. His voice carried upward, not outward, echoing into the sky. It was as if the structure had been built as a machine of sound, a place where voices could be lifted to something beyond the earth. The scientists exchanged uneasy looks. If this had been a temple, then it was designed to connect the people with the heavens. If it had been an arena, then the walls amplified every cry, every shout, every scream. Either way, the sound design was intentional and advanced. Theories began to grow darker. Some researchers pointed out that similar echoes had been found in other mysterious sites around the world. Ancient stone circles, caves, pyramids. Were these ruins connected? Could there have been a forgotten global knowledge, a science of sound now lost to us? As the sun set behind the hills, one of the explorers noticed something strange. When light struck the oval walls at a certain angle, shadows fell in a perfect line toward one of the chambers. It was as though the structure had been built to follow the sun. Was it an ancient calendar, a place to mark seasons, or a gateway aligned with the heavens? The evidence kept piling up. Precision stone cuts, foundation stronger than time, scorch marks from impossible fires, acoustics that carried voices to the sky, alignments with the sun. Piece by piece, the ruins revealed that they were more than a simple gathering place. They were part of something larger, something designed with purpose. And yet, there was still no answer to the question of who had built them. The scientists grew restless. Some argued it was proof of a lost civilization. Others believed it was evidence of advanced knowledge, passed down by forgotten teachers. A few even dared to whisper of visitors, not of this world. But no matter the theory, the evidence stood firm. These stones did not belong in the timeline of human history. One archaeologist wrote in his notes, "It is as if the builders stepped out of the shadows, created this monument, and then vanished, leaving nothing behind but mystery." The team could feel it. The ruins were not silent. They carried weight, a presence that could not be explained. Every stone, every mark, every shadow seemed to whisper the same thing. This was not meant to be forgotten. The strange evidence left the world divided. Some called it superstition. Some called it science. Others called it madness. But for those who stood inside the oval at night, with the moonlight shining on the walls and the echoes drifting into the air, it felt like something more. Something ancient. Something powerful. Something alive. And the deeper they looked, the more they realized. This was no ordinary ruin. It was a message. But from who, and for what purpose? No one yet knew. The evidence was strange enough. But what it suggested was far more dangerous. Inside the ruins, scientists could argue about stones and tools. They could debate over fire and echoes. But there was one truth that none of them could escape. This structure should not exist. And if it did exist, It meant that everything we believed about human history might be wrong. The official story is simple. 6,000 years ago, people lived in small groups. They built huts of mud, used stone hammers, hunted animals, and slowly learned to farm. Great cities would not rise for thousands of years. Writing had not yet been invented. Wheels had not yet rolled across the land. And yet here was a monument designed with precision, aligned with the heavens, carved with cuts too clean for simple tools, and strong enough to survive millennia. If this was true, then the question had to be asked. What else have we been wrong about? Some archaeologists dared to speak these words aloud. They suggested that maybe humanity had forgotten an entire chapter of its story, that there was once a nation, a people, who rose earlier than anyone imagined, a nation with knowledge that disappeared without a trace. But others went further. One quiet night, around a fire near the ruins, a young researcher asked a question that many had feared to ask. What if they were not human at all? The camp fell silent. The flames cracked. Eyes turned to him. He explained. Every culture speaks of gods who came from the sky. Myths of teachers, bringers of light, givers of knowledge. Ancient visitors who taught humanity skills we should not have known. Could this ruin be their work? Could this oval be a gift, or a warning, left by hands not of this world? No one laughed, because the stones did not belong. The structure did not fit. It was like a puzzle piece from another picture, forced into the wrong timeline. But to say such things out loud was dangerous, for if the world believed it, history itself would collapse. Still, whispers spread. Some began calling it the monument of the first gods. Others said it was proof of lost technology, far beyond the reach of Stone Age farmers. The forbidden questions only grew louder. Why was the oval empty? Why no carvings, no bones, no signs of everyday life? Why build something so large, only to abandon it? And the most chilling question of all, if they built this once, what else might they have built that we have not yet found? The ruins were no longer just an archaeological site. They were a threat to history, to science, to the stories that shape who we believe we are. Some experts warned against publishing the full findings. They said the world was not ready. They said people would fall into panic, believing myths over science, legends over facts. But the ruins did not care. They stood silent, daring humanity to ask the questions it had buried for too long. And those who stood inside the oval at night felt something they could not explain. A weight in the air, a sense of presence, as if the builders were still watching, still guarding their secret. One explorer swore he heard a low hum when he placed his ear to the stone. Another said he saw shadows moving across the wall, though no one else was there. These accounts were dismissed as imagination, but those who heard them never forgot. The forbidden questions could not be erased. They grew stronger with every new discovery, every new test, every new whisper carried on the wind. Who built this? Why here? Why then? And why leave it behind as if waiting for us to find it thousands of years later? The ruins demanded answers, but perhaps the builders never wanted us to know. Perhaps the greatest secret of all is that this structure was not meant to be explained. It was meant to be feared. The ruins stood in silence, but their silence was louder than words. Every stone, every shadow, every echo seemed to whisper a truth that no one wanted to face. For weeks, the archaeologists had searched for answers. They had tested the stones, measured the walls, studied the chambers. They had argued, debated, and fought over theories. But in the end, none of it could explain the impossible. This was not just an ancient structure. It was something more, something that should not exist. The scientists tried to fit it into history. They spoke of farmers, of rituals, of forgotten tribes. But the stones rejected these stories. They stood firm, their smooth cuts and towering walls declaring a truth that was older than civilization itself. And in the stillness of the night, under the pale glow of the moon, the explorers began to feel it. The ruins were not empty. They were watching. One historian described it best in his private notes. When you stand in the center of the oval, you do not feel alone. You feel as if thousands of unseen eyes are upon you, as if the builders are still here waiting. The thought was terrifying, because if the builders were still here, where were they hiding? The truth was too large to ignore. This site was not only about stone. It was about power. It was about knowledge that we do not have today. Knowledge that has been erased or hidden. Some experts concluded that this was the birth of a nation, but not a nation of men. A nation of something greater, something older, something unknown. And yet, they left no records, no writings, no names, only stone. Why? Perhaps because names could be erased. But stone would endure. Perhaps they wanted their message to outlive time itself. A message that we were not alone. A message that humanity's story is far older, far stranger than we dare to believe. And perhaps it was also a warning, because the oval was not warm or welcoming. It was cold, heavy, unsettling. It did not celebrate life. It whispered of power, of ritual, of secrets too dangerous to share. The more the scientists searched, the more they realized that some questions cannot be answered without changing everything we know. Who built this? Why did they build it? And most terrifying of all, what happened to them? Did they vanish by choice? Were they destroyed by something greater? Or are they still out there, watching, waiting unseen? The ruins offered no reply, only silence. But sometimes silence says more than words. For those who visited, the site never left them. Many spoke of strange dreams afterward, visions of people they had never seen, voices they could not recognize, chants and languages they did not understand. Some dismissed it as imagination. Others believed it was memory, a memory carried by the stones themselves. The oval was not dead. It was alive, a living monument, carrying the weight of a truth too vast to speak. And in the end, only one conclusion remained. This was not just an ancient ruin. It was a reminder that history is not complete, a reminder that we are missing chapters of our story, a reminder that humanity may not be as alone as we think. The scientists closed their notebooks. They gave their reports. But deep inside, they knew the truth. This site was not just archaeology. It was a doorway to something older than time and darker than history. The world may never know who built the 6,000-year-old megastructure. But one thing is certain. The truth is still out there. Hidden. Unseen. And perhaps, it was never meant to be found. Pause. This is only the beginning of many stories the earth still hides. Stories buried under stone and soil. Stories waiting for us to uncover. Stories that history tried to erase, but could not. Soft fade. Welcome once again to Historia Unseen, where the past is never truly gone.